Well, hi everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and you can never quite get the camera right before you start. All right, so I hope you're all well. And if you're just joining us, DearMamaSal is about helping you cope with love, life, and other problems. And I say that because, we all have situations in life that affect us. And so often we think we're the only ones that have the problem. And so part of what we do is have a fun look at some of the issues that surround us. And today, one of the things I really wanted to talk about was what it actually takes to be motivated. And the reason I say this is because so many people say to me, oh gosh, if only I had your attitude, I would get so much done. And one of the things helps if you put your mic on. So one of the things that I really want to make sure that everybody understands is that motivation comes from within, but also you have to be aware that you create it. Motivation is something that you create. It's not something that somebody else creates. And so quite often people will say to me, oh, thank you so much. You motivated me to do this, 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 and this. And it actually isn't true. I mean, it's very kind of them, but it isn't true. What they did was they motivated themselves just by hearing the words. Does that make any sense at all? And so what I wanted to talk about today was just how many times we need to motivate ourselves and the different ways in which people do it. So if you're just joining us now, welcome. And know that we're discussing motivation, and I'd really be interested to know what motivates you. And if you can let me know, that would be great. Now, the reason why I asked that question is because different things motivate different people. And I'm at the moment doing an experiment with one of the viewers, Lauren, where I asked her to do certain things and then keep track of how she felt after doing them. The reason for that is, it is my experience that, as you've heard me say time and time again, you can't think your way out of depression or a funk or whatever. You have to do your way out. And so the experiments that we're doing is that I've challenged her to actually get out more and then let us know how she's felt after she's been out more. So the reason I say that is I have discovered, for example, that if I bother to sit down at night and actually plan my next day, now I'm laughing because I very rarely achieve it exactly as I planned it, but if I actually plan out my next day, and if I get clever, in other words, if I don't over-plan it. Hi, Charles, good to see you. And I'm certain Charlotte will say this because she's a runner. You don't get out and run every day unless you plan to do it and then you follow up on the plan. Am I right, Charlotte? You didn't get to run 5K by just happening to go out the front door one day and running 5K. You had to plan it out. You had to plan out each step of it. In the first week I'm going to do this much, and in the second week I'm going to push to do that much. By the way, Charlotte, don't laugh. I've got myself on a plan to see if I can actually do 5K walking, never mind running, which I thought would be quite interesting to do. And I thought you would appreciate it because you know what it takes. Yes, you have to plan your training. So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that everybody understands is that this whole thing about, oh, she's got such a great attitude isn't true. When I say that it isn't true, it doesn't just sort of, I wake up in the morning and there it is. I actually have to have things that I do that actually get me motivated. So Charlotte, you're a great example if you've got the willingness to participate. Can you let us know some of the things that you do when you wake up and you go, I don't really feel like running today? What sort of things do you say to yourself, and what sort of things do you do that get you out of the door and running? And while we're waiting for that, if any of you have got any input on that as well, I would be most grateful. I'm just trying to get this camera angle right. I'm normally at a much different angle. I know that some people do this before they go live, and I thought it was right, but it isn't. Let's try that. Looks a bit better, right? I normally have the pictures behind me. Okay, so what do you do to motivate yourself to do things? That's what I'm interested in. And I'm going to take some notes from what you tell me so that I can talk about it in terms of my experience of certain things. So the number one thing that stops most of us, I'd like to suggest, is the voice in our head. And the voice in our head is the one that says, oh, you don't really want to do that today. Or how about the one, oh, it's raining. Okay, so Charlotte actually runs in the afternoon or evening. Now that's an interesting thing. Hang on, Charlotte. That's an interesting thing. Do you find that you're more motivated at that time? You know, because that's a very important point that I'd like to add to this, which is, you know, sometimes you've got to look at your personal time clock. Now, some people obviously work and some people don't. And so from that perspective, some people have more flexibility about when they can do things than others. Now, what I found, for example, is that if I stop and bother to write down the night before what I want to accomplish the next day and set a time limit on it, I find I do a lot better. And one of the things that I found, as I said, is the voice in my head that tries to stop me. And I call her Gertrude. And she's a right pain, I can tell you that. But the interesting thing is that the voices I will hear this voice that goes, oh, but it's raining, you don't really want to go. Or, you know, you don't really want to do that now, it's, you know, you want to procrastinate about that again. And it's funny because, you know, if I listen to the voice, it's normally quite compelling, you know. And so what I found is if I actually plan my day, and then start my day and go, okay, fine, I need to start at the beginning and systematically go through everything. Does that make sense? It's not a case of, okay, I'll start with the thing I planned for 3 o'clock because that's the one I want to do. I go, no, you don't get to move to the 3 o'clock one until you've finished everything that's before it. And I try to plan my day that way. In other words, the things that I'm procrastinating about, I try and put early on in my day. You know, wash the floor. Not my idea of a fun experience, so, you know, I keep missing it. Whereas now what I'm doing is saying to myself, okay, I want to plan that early in the day. I want to get up in the morning, get dressed, and then the first thing I do is that. Now, the other thing I'm really bad about are things that I don't think are going to be much fun. Doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, things like that. Do any of you relate? So what happens is I keep procrastinating about them. And then if you procrastinate long enough, you find out, gosh, that's been a year and I haven't been. Because I'm good. And so those sort of things I'm now planning into my mornings. So I can't go and do the fun things until I finish the things, or at least given an attempt. Now, you can't always finish what you plan. For example, I might make a phone call to somebody, but they've got to call me back. That's okay. At least I can check it off my list. I got as far as I could. And that's an important thing. Now, I found that keeping motivated is a sort of like what I call an ongoing challenge. So getting motivated for me is making sure I know what I want to do. And I think, who was it? If you don't have a dream, how are you going to have a dream come true? So in other words, set the goal. And I would ask you, how many of you actually do set daily goals of what you want to do? Because that's it's an important thing. Yes, I agree with you that motivation is challenge after challenge, right? Because you might be motivated in this hour, but suddenly an hour later you're not. So you've got to redo it. And so much of that is just talking yourself into it. Charlotte, just so that you know, part of my new routine that I'm saying to myself is, is it raining? No. Is it snowing? No. So do you have an excuse? No. Then get out of the house. That is my number one thing that I'm finding. If I can get out of the house, 9 times out of 10, I feel better. Yes, get a rain jacket. Or I've got very, very good fleece that works really well in the rain. But the point that I'm making is, even if I go with the is it raining, is it snowing, the fact is I can still get out of the house and go to a mall and walk, for example, or I can get in the car and go somewhere and do something. Now, yesterday, for example, I actually managed to nearly double my steps, and that was because I went shopping. But what I did was, when I went to the supermarket, I literally walked every aisle of the supermarket, and then went back and walked them again. Make any sense in that? Because I found out you can put in a lot of steps in the supermarket if you want to. And so what I would do is, the aisles where I knew I didn't need anything, I just hot-footed it down that aisle. By the way, pushing my cart, pushing the cart, because that's, resistance stuff, right, Charlotte? That's how I look at it. Okay, and the heavier, hi there, Indu, and the heavier the cart gets, the more resistance, so that's good. So literally what I do is I go slowly down the aisles where I know I need something, but I hot-foot it down the aisles where I don't, and then I reverse the order and go back again, which takes me to the back end of the store again, and then guess what? Depending on what I feel like, I either do more aisles, picking up the things I've forgotten, or I just get out of there, knowing, yes, the cart, I really have worked out that the cart equals resistance. The other thing, Charlotte, and I've said this to people who are bedridden, that literally just doing this will up your heart rate. Shukriya, Kihalaji. It's midnight, wow. What does it feel like to be close friends with Benji and Judy? It feels very blessed. I think blessed would be the word I would use. Okay, can you remind me to get back to that? It's a pleasure, Indu. If you remind me, Amelia, to get back to that, I will do that after I finish what I'm talking about at the moment. Yeah. Okay. So, Charlotte, what I found is literally just doing this 100 times, will up your heart rate and will show on your steps. And so every now and then during the day, I try and make sure I put in 100 of these, or at least 50. All right, and just get my heart rate up a little bit. So I think the thing that most people need to realize is, and I'm still very bad, you understand that, what you realize is that what happens is you need to move in some way, and it doesn't really matter what way. In other words, you can exercise, you can you know, you can exercise, you can go shopping, you can go just walk somewhere if you want to or not. I find just getting out and doing anything really helps my mood. So do any of you find that you've got a trick that you do that helps you keep your mood up? I guess that's the question I'm trying to answer for other viewers. Because I think more than anything, I listen to people. Thanks, Poppy. You know something? I'm very lucky. I think I'm very lucky at my age to have as much hair as I have. So it needs a haircut at the moment, though. But thank you. So I really wanted to get this idea of how do we control our own mood into... Oh, you dance. That is interesting, Charlotte. Yeah. For those of you who have the ability to do that, that is a great way to do exercise. As I said, I found going out and going shopping. Now, for example, you could go out and just visit the local farmers market or the local flea market and just walk around. You would find two things. Number one is you would get exercise. But number two, because doing something like that, you'd see creative things. You know what I mean? You'd see people being creative. And there's something about creativity that actually does make life happier in some way. One of the things I've always found is if I'm feeling really down, it's a good idea to get my paints out and try and paint, or, you know, do something creative, bake something, cook something. All right, so Amelia, was it you that was asking me about Benji and Judy? And I wondered if you knew just how long I'd known them. And I know somebody asked me when I'm coming to India. I love the way people ask me these things. Hi, when are you coming to India? You see, the problem I would have going to India is it's so big. Where would I go? And so many people. I think that's my biggest fear about going to India is the number of people. Hang on, slowly, guys, hang on. How did I meet Benji? Okay, oops. How did I meet him? I actually was the opening and closing speaker of a leadership event. And Benji was one of the participants. And he and I, for some reason, he really stood out to me. He stood out to me because he's very well-mannered, he's very respectful, and yet he's very driven. Does that make sense? And so he stood out amongst a lot of people. And so what I found was that after the event, we stayed in touch. And we continued to stay in touch. And I think, if I'm correct, he was 18 when I first met him. And as you know, he's a long way past there now. And so I met him before he got engaged and before he got married and before the children. So we've known each other a long time. And I'd like to think that it's been a mutually rewarding relationship. In other words, I guess early on I had a lot of things to add to his life in terms of my knowledge. And he took it and used it and became very successful and helped Judy become very successful. And I am very delighted to see that. And now, I guess in a way, as I get older, now the tables turn a bit. And it's a little bit difficult. I want to tell you that it is a little bit difficult, sort of moving from mentor into almost student, I guess. It's not quite that. But you understand what I'm saying. It's a change in dynamic, and it's quite cute. I'm learning a lot from doing it. I'm not used to... I think the biggest problem I have, and I don't know if any of you relate to this, I don't receive very well. I give well, but I actually don't receive very well. Do any of you relate to that? It's much easier to give things to people than it is to receive. So, I am really hoping that this will make some sense to you. Yeah. So that's how I met him. I think the other question that people don't ask, they always ask how I met him, but they never ask, how did we continue to have such a friendship when the age difference was so huge? And I guess that would be like any relationship, as I said, that it was mutually rewarding. In other words, early on, I got a great deal of joy out of being able to assist him in giving him options on, if he had things going on and he'd want to know, well, what can I do? And I give him lots of options and say, go ahead, do whatever you think's right. And well, which is the right one? I really don't know, because I'm not living your life. And I think that's something that I would say to all people, which is understand that you don't want somebody else to tell you what to do. When you ask for advice, get options, because what you need to do is to get options so you can make your choice based on your life and your goals and what you want to do with it. You see, what happens when people sort of say, oh, I don't know what to do, what should I do? And you tell them what you think they should do. Number one, that could be totally the wrong information for that person, because they are not at your level of understanding, they're not at your level of growth, they're not at your level of anything. But if you give them a range of choices, well, I found that you could do this. I've also heard of people who've done this, and I've heard people that have done that. Now, you choose which, and by the way, there are plenty of other options. Just keep asking people for their options, and you're going to get one that you think, I could do that. And that is the one you're looking for, the one that feels right for you. I wonder if that makes sense to everybody. But if you say to somebody, okay, this is my problem, what do I do? And let's say I do tell you, well, you should do this, 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 and this. And then that person does it and something goes wrong, they're going to say, but it's your fault. You told me to do that. Okay, let me just see what rolled by me there. Hi, Jody. Yeah. No, Amelia, I understand. Are their personalities the same off camera as they are on? Well, I'd like to suggest that not everybody is exactly the same off camera. So here's what I would tell you, and I've said this many times before, so it's nothing new. I think Judy is probably the nicest human being in so many ways. Do you know what I mean? What you see is what you get with her. She is very loving, giving, very maternal, I just sit in awe of her, quite honestly, and I tell her that regularly. Her patience level is just mind-blowing. Whereas Benji, let me ask you, what do you see on camera with Benji? Because I think you only see a part of him on camera. So let me ask you, what is it that you see when you're watching him? Yes, exactly. He is a very serious young man, um, in lots of ways, but he also is lots of fun. And quite honestly, he's a very busy man. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he literally is on the go in some way, like a machine. I mean, it's amazing to watch him. So he not only is a very thoughtful person, by the way, and one of the things I remember talking to him about is, if you want to have great relationship, take notes on people. I remember telling him that a long time ago. Take notes on people. So when you next meet them, you will, you will have memories. Okay, fine, this is the one that's got the dog that does this, that, and the other. And it's really funny because I didn't realize that he actually did that to the extent that he did. And the reason I say that was because one day I told him something. It was so cute. One day I told him something, and years later, it must have been 10 years later, he walked in the door and he handed me something, and I opened it up and I burst into tears because it was this thing I had spoken about 10 years prior. And he never forgot, because he put down the note. And so the next time he was in that country, he picked this up. And I was just mind blown. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to even talk about it. It was so thoughtful. That is the other thing. Incredibly thoughtful people. Those placemats, yeah, exactly. Hi there. Okay, is it Knight's Raven? From Edmonton. I guess it's still not snowing, right? Yeah, and so Poppy, this is the thing that I was talking about to everybody, which is, I think it happens to a lot of mothers, for example. Mothers spend their lives bringing up their children, and then the children grow up and go to college or leave home or do whatever, and the mothers are left sitting there going, and now what do I do? I mean, my whole life for the last 18 years. Knight's Raven, I was going to ask, you know that, right? I was actually going to ask that, and I thought, no, that would be rude. Yeah, so the thing that I wanted to explain, though, is how thoughtful they both are. Yeah, I'm glad that you laughed. That's going to really ruin my eye makeup now. Raven, I just literally, I'm going, should I ask whether it's snowing still in Edmonton? Thank you for your humor. Yeah, I guess you get asked that a lot. Actually, I nearly always ask Charlotte because she is actually in Eastern Canada, and I always feel quite guilty when I'm looking at my tulips and I know they're probably still digging out the snowdrops at that point. So yes, I would say their thoughtfulness is mind-blowing, but also their generosity. I'm sure you get a sense of that. When I say their generosity, yeah, I saw that, Charlotte, that it snowed on the 20th. Their generosity, not only to their family and friends, but and you understand, generosity is about things other than money. The generosity of time, generosity of helpfulness, generosity of everything. But yeah, really, there are times when I look at those two and I go, gosh, I wish I had I wish I had their qualities. So I can't help but wonder whether those qualities are, yeah. The other thing that I think would, the other thing that I think I would mention without, because I hate to cross the line and cross into, people write to me and they say, oh, will you do this, that, and the other for me? And I go, no, because if I did it for you, I'd need to do it for a couple of million people, and I'm not going to get into that. But there are certain things that I think just by watching them. I would say that they fit in more into a day than you can imagine in lots of ways. They genuinely enjoy their children. Does that? And I say that because I've been in so many homes, I guess including my own when I was growing up, where the children should be seen and not heard. And that is not that family. The children are definitely a huge part of their amusement, a huge part of their enjoyment, and a huge part of their existence is what I would say. So that's lovely to see in any family. And I guess it took the longest time for me, because I don't get down there very often, to get used to the fact that every time I walked in, the children sort of screamed. Because they didn't know me, and I've got a funny accent, and I look funny, and I know nothing about children. It's sort of like definitely not my thing. And I remember when I was invited down to the christenings, I can remember Judy handing Juliana over to me. Oh no, that's right. She handed one of the twins over. It was the twins. It was one of the twins, and I'm going, yeah, right. Are you really going to entrust me with this twin? And even before, with Juliana, you just keep handing Juliana over. And of course, as soon as Juliana saw me, she'd scream. And but it was amazing because I actually learned to be different. I learned not to be so scared of this little thing. I always said that I'll be a lot more value to the children when they can talk. I admire all the people that can deal with babies. All right, any other questions while we're doing this? And by the way, the reason I am here on YouTube is I've got a problem. If you can believe life, I have two different computers. A big one, that's what I call my workhorse, and then my backup for when something goes wrong with my workhorse. If you can believe it, in the last month, both computers, one died completely, where I took it in to get mended, and they handed me back the hard drive and said that's the only thing worth saving. And that's my workhorse one. And now my backup one is giving problems as well. So yeah, something, Jody? Juliana and I bonded quite early on, and we bond on a creative level. I don't know if you've seen that. I know that I can always remember that we played with Play-Doh one time, and yeah, I know, Charlotte, it really sucks big time. Anyway, we were playing with Play-Doh, and she and I literally created dresses for her princesses for about, I would think, at least an hour. It took forever. But I was, the kid in me, I was thoroughly enjoying every moment of it. She and I did jigsaw puzzles one day. And you know that, I don't know if you've noticed, but when she interacts with me, she's inclined to play act as well, be a dog, be whatever, you know. I don't know when she got into that. Maybe because she knows it amuses me. I don't know. I've never quite worked that one out. But just colouring. At her birthday, the whole of the birthday party was going on around her, and she and I were sitting at a table with colouring books, and I actually sat down to talk to her, and then she was handing me stuff and going, "Mama Sal, you know, you need to colour this bit with this one." I go, "Okay." and then I'd do that, and I'd stop and I go, "And now? No, this bit here with this one." Okay. So I become an extension of her creativity, and that's fine. Every now and then I'll ask, "Can I colour this one myself?" And normally mess it up. Now, the biggest challenge for me is staying within the lines, because I'm not good at that. I'm creative. Now, and the other thing is, I found that I bonded more with Mia than I did with Kira. I don't know why. Now, it's not that I like one better than the other. It's just, you know, I don't know how to describe that. I think because Kira is fairly needy. You know what I mean? Kira's normally attached to Mummy in some way. And that leaves Mia. Maybe that's what it is. No, so knowing them has enriched my life. There's no doubt about that. And I only hope that I continue to live a long and happy life and have many more years of knowing them, because not only have they shared that, but even if you think about it, I find now that Benji's dad, John, he and I, you know, sort of do fairly well, although we have very different ideas on certain things. But, you know, he seems to understand who I am now. And Judy's family, bless their hearts, they just, you know, they just, I don't know how to describe that, but I walked into the party for the twins' birthday this year, and you could just see all these heads pop up and these big smiles go, and people holding their hands out ready to give me a hug. And it was just like, you know, how beautiful is that? And so, yes, it's not just that Benji and Judy have included me into the family, but so have, you know, to a large extent, the families themselves. So, which, you know, I think it took a bit of getting used to, because like a lot of the viewers, they didn't understand the relationship. I cannot tell you how hurtful it has been when some people have totally misunderstood the relationship. Because, you know, people have got very strange minds, I can tell you that. Well, hi, Andrea. You know, for you to see me as an amazing person, you must be a pretty amazing person as well. Do you understand? Because we see in others that we have, I find, that we have ourselves. Jody, before you came on, I was asking some questions, and I wondered whether you could give us a couple of feedback answers. And by the way, anybody else that can relate to this, we were talking about motivation. And for those of you who don't know, Jody lives in New Hampshire, but she has a life that is, to a large part, ruled by pain. Would that be correct, Jody? And I was talking earlier, Jody, about motivation, where people sort of seem to think that I have this incredibly strong motivation, which of course I don't. But I wondered, because you deal with pain every day, whether you could explain to people, what do you say to yourself in the morning that gets you out of bed? What do you say to yourself that gets you doing things? And what sort of things make you feel better? Perhaps that's, you know, that's the question. I was asking Charlotte, and Charlotte, really, when I think about it, Charlotte, when we first met, which would have been a couple of years ago now, I think, when I think of what you weren't doing a couple of years ago and what you are doing, you're going to do a half marathon? How many K is that? Or, was it really 2013? So it's 3 years. It's 13 miles or 21K. All right, so when I first met you, if I'm correct, 3 years ago, Charlotte, you know, getting out of bed and actually leaving the bedroom was a major stretch for you. Am I correct? That seems to be my memory, that you were not, you were just starting. Okay. So that would be an interesting question for me, which was, what have you found in running that's kept you going? Now, of course, every now and then I actually try to run. Well, you don't want that on video. But, you know, me trying to run is really quite funny. So, you were post-surgery. Okay. So the thing is this, that everybody has their own way of getting themselves out of a funk. Now, really, Andrea, you have to imagine this. You know, I struggle to get round the block, never mind go running. Now, if Benji went running with me, how bored is he going to be? You wouldn't want him to do that. It would be like running with Charlotte. You know, they're runners now. Let me see what she says here. We start with the fact that I was blessed with another day. Yes, you're grateful. And it's my job, hang on a second, to do at least one positive thing during the day for myself and one for somebody else. Okay, so that's what I was talking about, Jody. That's interesting that you also do the same thing. Because I find that if I, at night, sit down with my planner and actually plan my day, in other words, I plan the things I'm procrastinating about, you know, do one step, doesn't matter what it is, just one more thing. When I do that sort of thing, I have a much better day. And the other thing is that if I know I'm procrastinating about this thing, then I don't get to pass it by. I schedule it for first thing in the morning, before I get too many voices in my head saying, it's not fun, let's do something else. I actually say, you know, you don't get to do something else until you've done it. So that's good. So even though you are in so much pain, you actually start the day being grateful. Yes, and Charlotte, what you're saying is that in running you made friends, and also you did a lot of stuff on social media, and so have you got quite a following now, I would think? So to you, running has become a social thing, even though you presumably do a lot of your own running pretty privately, you know, just you and your thoughts. So, but when you get to compete, you make a lot of friends. Or are you talking to all these people online and challenging each other to do better, bigger and better things? I mean, to go from 5K to 21K, yeah, that's a big leap. You know, that's a huge leap, in fact, Charlotte. So how on earth, That to me is like you went 5K, 10K, and now you're doubling it. Wow. Do you guys remember? Okay, I'm just reading here. O thou who has granted us so much, merciful, grant us one more thing. A grateful heart, yeah. I think a grateful heart is the secret to happiness myself. Now, the reason that Charlotte laughs about Dougie is because, for those of you who don't know, Dougie is another one of my sons. Some friends of his actually entered what was it, a marathon? No, I think it was a 5K fun run or something. I don't know what it was. What can you remember, Charlotte? It was 10K, okay. Anyway, what happened was some friends of his were all booked in to do a 10-kilometer. Now, you need to know Dougie was originally from Kenya, which means he's got running in his genes, literally. And so, but some friends of his had a team, and at the last moment, somebody got sick and they couldn't compete. And they came to Dougie and they said, could you come and be part of our team? Now, you have to understand, Dougie is not a runner. He had never run in his life. But being Dougie, he said, okay. And he not only competed, 10K, but he beat most of the other team. That was the peculiar thing. But he did say, am I right, Charlotte, that about 7K he wished he'd never agreed to it. He didn't think he was ever going to finish it, but he did. It was amazing. Yeah, that was some time ago. Good memories. All right, any other questions before I go? It's been fun. And I am hoping by next week that I will have a computer that works. Do any of you know, how can I drain my computer so that I can release memory? What is it that eats up the memory? Anybody know? Wow. Now, how about that? For those of you who are listening to this, as you will do on the replay, Jody just put up a quote that said you can choose to live your life one of two ways. And the one way is that nothing is a miracle. And the other way is that everything is. Yeah, I love that. Andrea, it's a pleasure, really. Yeah, that's a great quote. Hey, I got a new gizmo yesterday. Actually, I must edit that piece of video and put it up for you. Very clever. So guys, I'm going to wish you well and hope that you have a wonderful weekend. For those of you who are regular viewers, I will try and get onto Tiny Chat. For some reason, that doesn't seem to have quite as many problems, but I will try that tonight and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then we will make a plan. You know, Andrea, that's the whole thing that people realize eventually, that your happiness to such a large degree is related to how you see things, your perception of life. Jody, I think you'd agree with me about that. Hang on a second. Oh, hi, Kim. Okay, this is what happened to me last time. I was about to leave and then all these questions came up. All right, that's an important question. Kim asked me, can you talk about how to cope with family that spreads rumors? And Alice, nice to see you, honey. Hi. You really can't control them. Kim. When I say you can't control them, people who spread rumors are normally jealous people at some thing. So you can confront them and say, and I'm inclined to do that, which doesn't make me very popular, but I will say to people, you know, I understand that you're telling people da 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 da. Could you explain to me why you're doing that? Because it actually isn't true. And then, but then that's more resistance, if you like. And I believe, from what I've heard, the better thing is just to let it be. I've had people spread the most terrible rumors online about me, but you know, I just don't answer it. Because I know the people who know me, and they're the people I care about, you know, the people that bother to get to know me, know that isn't true of me. So, Kim, I think the important thing is Alice, absolutely. Yeah, do you want to live with it or do you want to have distance? I mean, many of us, and I'm one, I have literally distanced myself from a family member because they just every time we met, they were just so cutting and nasty and, you know, at some level very jealous of me, and I don't understand why. Really, I have no idea why. But at some level, they just didn't like me as a human being. And that is their right. I think, Kim, what I realized eventually was you can't make people like you. They're either going to like you or they're not. And you cannot change the way they think. Only they can. So now I know what you're saying in your mind probably is, yeah, but then they're telling other people I'm a nasty person or whatever they're telling them. Well, yeah. And some will believe them. You know, some people will believe them. But I move on. You know, I move on. Yeah, I try to move on to the people that that understand me better. Now, to be fair though, Kim, and I've got to be honest on this one, you know, I'm not a perfect person. So one of the first things when I listen to the rumors or the nastiness, the first thing I will do is say, is it true? You know, is it true of me? And then I ask myself, do they have any reason to think it might be true, right, from my knowledge of them? And so I think the first thing I would recommend is process inwardly first. For example, I've had people say incredibly nasty things. We were talking about Benji and Judy, but I've had people say incredibly nasty things and horrible rumors about my relationship with Benji and Judy. And I just don't even give it the time of day. You know, and yet I've got friends of mine who get quite incensed. I have at least 2 friends who cannot watch the channel after I've been to visit Benji and Judy because they know, you know, there are going to be so many negative comments and they get really upset and that therefore they can't watch those videos. So cute. But I just don't watch them for the same reason. It's just like, I've had people write to me and say, you need to go to this site, they're saying some really nasty things about you. You know, and I will write back and go, why would I do that to myself? You know, why would I intentionally go to a site where they're saying nasty things about me? I got better things to do with my day. If you guys want to think that, you know, those guys want to think that about me, that's their right. They obviously don't know me very well. Oh, definitely. You definitely are not going to have approval from everybody, nor should you. And that's what I said. I think, quite honestly, part of my experience of being a public figure, you know, because I was an international speaker long time ago. And one of the things that I learned then was that everybody gets to evaluate you at the end of a speech. And it's interesting because sometimes you wonder, were they in the same room? You know, it's like, where did they come up with this? You know, where did they come up with this? And then you realize at some level they are angry at me or jealous of me or want to be able to do what I can do. And it's amazing. And their way of trying to bring you down is to attack you. One of the stories I tell regularly is the story about the lobsters. You know, lobsters in a basket, what they do is they don't bother to put a lid on, because as soon as the first lobster starts to try and get out of the basket, the next ones will climb on top of it and the weight of them will bring them down. And, you know, that way lobsters don't get out of the basket. So people do that. Have you noticed that? People want to bring you down if you are successful in any way. And so you understand that even within a family, they see your success as unworthy. You are unworthy of that, whatever you did. Now, Kim, I'm not sure what the spreading rumors about. But I have, throughout my lifetime, I think because I was a public figure for a long time, and still am, I guess, I think that at some level, they probably wanted to be that person, maybe. I don't know. I've got one person in my life who happens to be related, who is so angry at me. And do you want to know why, Kim? I don't know if you've heard this story. But the reason they are so angry at me is because I was very good. Bye, Charles. Good to see you. I was very good at business. I was very effective. And I didn't get turned on that much by being very successful in business. I did it for quite a few years. I found that I was much happier in myself teaching people and helping people. And I spent the next part of my life doing that. And therefore forfeiting the money, this fame and everything else. And I've been a happier person because of that. In lots of ways. And yet, this person is so angry at me because I chose to make that change. I've got another friend of mine who, you know, at heart is a traveler, and his family, for example, are very negative about him because he won't fit into the family dynamic and stay at home and be part of the family. Well, he's got a wanderlust, you know. He just loves to travel. He loves to see new places and see new things. But the family punishes him for it. So I think it's part of life. I think, you know, whether you work in an office or live in a family or whatever, these things are going to happen. I think the important thing is that even in the best of families, you can have moments of that. True? Even in the best of relationships, you can have a total disagreement about something. And the way you know whether you've got a good friendship or a relationship is at the end of it, you're still friends. It may take a little while for the emotions to calm down, but at the end of it, you find out you're still friends. Now, I don't know about you. To me, that is a relationship where you can have an all-out fight about something, if necessary. And yet, you know, and at the time it's very relevant, but at the end of it, you've still got the relationship. You still care. And I guess that would be the key. How much do you care? Now, I've cared about people and literally held open the door and, you know, extended the hand of friendship so many times that, I mean, I don't quit easily, as some of you know. But But eventually, even I just said, that's enough. Really, I've done this enough now. So, Kim, I wish I had a smart answer for you. You can choose one of two options, right? You can choose to confront it, which some people do, and just go, excuse me, I hear this is what you're saying. Could you explain to me why you're saying that? And, you know, understand that even if they repeat it, and because you are a da-da-da-da-da-da, and you go, I am so sorry that you believe that. That's what I would say. I am so sorry that you believe that. And I don't think there's much I can say to make you unbelieve it because you've chosen to believe it. But if ever you'd like to hear my side of the story, let me know. And let it go. Because obviously this person doesn't want to hear your side of the story, otherwise they would have phoned you and say, hey, have you had that happen where somebody will phone you and say, hey, listen, the word on the street is, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Is that true? You see, I think that's what a friend does. You know, I just heard something from somebody and I was horrified because I don't believe it's true. And is it? You know, check it out. Because I think a friend checks it out. Alice, before you go, and because I don't get to see you very often, how's your health? I'm just hoping she's still there. Alice went through a very tough time as well. It's, you know, it's amazing. Yeah, Alice, but you know, I think that's why I'm saying you've got one of two options. One is to go, excuse me, why did you do this? All right, which does take balls, I agree with you. And the other is to just let it go. You know, if you haven't got the courage or the ability, you know, and some people just don't do confrontation well. But let me tell you one thing. You can confront it, but if you end up angry at the end of it, then they won. Do you know what I mean? So if I try very hard to get myself under control before I confront it. In other words, I will not do it in the moment that I'm angry. Very often. What I will do is I'll say, I'm really upset about this, what I've just heard, but I'll talk to you about it when I'm more under control because I don't want to say something that I will regret. Awesome, Alice. And just, Alice, so you know, I'm still having issues as well. And it's funny, isn't it? How they can't find out what these things are. But, you know, have you ever thought how difficult it must be being a doctor? You sort of have to be a bit clairvoyant. Manon, comment ça va? Are you still in England? It's, you know, it's quite funny because last time I tried to quit on the hour and it ended up being 2 hours. Okay, so yes, Gigi, that's true. You know, it's hard being a nurse. You have to be. I must admit that I like this new thing that nurses are doing because I think it's very important. Where they actually ask about pain level. On your scale, where is it on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm moving back so I can read that. Hang on a second, let me just read this comment from Kim. Well, maybe it was hard to deal with. And Paul's here as well. Hi, guys. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it onto Vaughan, but as you know, my computer's got issues going on. Wow, isn't that great? Yeah, about my health, I'm still trying to find out what's wrong, Alice. Funny enough, the viewers seem to think I've got an autoimmune thing going on. It makes me laugh that my viewers have got a better idea of what's going on than my doctor appears to. And it appears from their view that it's related to my psoriatic arthritis. And for those of you who don't know what that is an arthritis that actually, yeah, Non just thinks I'm getting old and cranky. But arthritis that affects your bones, but it actually comes out through your skin. I don't know how else to describe that. In other words, it doesn't just affect your joints, but it actually, and what the viewers have noticed, and quite honestly, I'd never related the two, was I get really fatigued at the same time as this flares up. Actually, this is pretty calm now. It's calmed down. But when this flares up on my hand, this psoriasis, is the same time. Wow. Okay. So Kim's just saying that, the family calls her crazy. Is this all of the family or just some of them, Kim? Because I got something to tell you that is very important. I would say we're all a little bit crazy. So if anybody says that to me, I would say, yep. And so was Winston Churchill, and so was Einstein, and I would go down a whole list of people who didn't fit in. Because I think anybody, who wants to be normal, for goodness sake? I would study up, Kim, people who have had a mental illness of some sort. Because we all have. At some level got some sort of, nobody's perfect. And I'd say, and so did so and so and so and so. That doesn't mean I can't be a totally, a totally wonderful person and do wonderful things in society. Yeah, I'm the first one to tell people, well, I suffered most of my life from situational depression. I luckily have learned how not to do it anymore. And I learned it the hard way. But, it's like, excuse me, what if I'd waited to get well before I ever started to be a speaker, for example? You understand, hundreds of thousands of people would not have been inspired. So, I had an international career where people didn't seem to mind. So Kim, I wouldn't actually deny it. I'd actually say, yeah, I think we all are a little bit. But, how seriously ill do you think I am? And by the way, you might want to check why they think that. What is the behavior that makes them think that? Now, and then listen to that, because maybe your behavior in some way is not normal to them, and therefore they think you're crazy. So in a way, you can sort of see their way of thinking, although it may not be true, but you can see why they're thinking like that. But my experience is, I do some really strange things. I wash my plastic bags rather than throw them away. I am certain there are people that think I'm really weird because I do that. I have been known to even wash foil and reuse it. So, it's about... Exactly. So some people, that's perfectly normal. Other people are going, wow, weird lady. So, by the way, for those of you who saw my video about the fact, use foil in the dryer, roll foil into a ball and use it in a dryer instead of dryer sheets. I want to tell you something. That thing works like a hot damn. I actually, it's one of those things where I went, wow, that doesn't work a little bit. That I have not put a dryer sheet in my wash since. It works that well, for those of you who didn't know that. Aluminum foil, or aluminium foil if you're in England, and wrap it into a ball. I make it about a golf ball size, about that size, and just throw it into your dryer with your wash. Manon's saying, you know, you cook with it first and then you roll it up into a ball. No, Manon, I did actually use fresh. I really don't want my clothes smelling of barbecued spare ribs or something. Manon has a very strange sense of humor. And we love her for it. So Manon, you didn't tell us why you're in England. Well, you know something, Kim, that is then revenge, right? That is a revenge move. And I want to tell you, Kim, I had a neighbor come to visit me one day with her 5-year-old child. And I don't know if you guys know, but I have a very big glass dining room table, oblong. And this 5-year-old child got up and started to dance on my glass dining room table. And I looked at the mother and I said, are you going to remove your child off my glass table, or do I have to? Because if you haven't removed her within 3 seconds, I am pulling her off there. 1, 2, yeah. And once I got her off, I looked at the mother and I said, what mother allows a child to dance on a glass table? Oh, she just loves to dance on tables. I said, the table is glass, for goodness sake. If that broke, it could kill her. Any table breaking could kill her, quite honestly. But a glass table? Really? I said, I need you and your daughter to leave my house because I'm not sure if my insurance covers you for idiotic things. And I was very judgmental, and I know it, but I didn't care. It was like, get out of my house. Because if you allow your daughter, if you allow your daughter to do that while I'm watching, what do you allow your daughter to do when I'm not watching? Wow. Very scary indeed. So I think let them, I think what is really mentally healthy. Yeah, Jody, that's right. We'd be grounded too. I think you were perfectly right. I think that grounding a 12-year-old for that sort of behavior, absolutely. And by the way, if they're in your house, it's your rules. But if you haven't set the rules when they come into your house, hi there, you're welcome, you're going to be staying for a couple of days. Just to let you know, I have a curfew time and it's 9 o'clock. Are you willing to do that? I'd have that set up before they even come to visit. You're more than welcome to visit, but here are the rules. Just so that you know. And if you don't want to visit, that's fine. But if you do, these are the rules you stick by, and if you don't stick by them, you're grounded. So I think that's true of life, though. I've got to say that. I think it's true of life in any relationship. Here are the boundaries. This is what is acceptable. This isn't what is acceptable. Alice made a comment, when she was here. I think she's gone now, but Alice made a comment that, she just chose to get out of the line of fire of her family because they were extremely jealous and judgmental. And she just got out of the way. It's like, do your own thing. There we go. Okay, you too, Alice. Good to see you. Alice, I didn't hear how your health is. Did I miss it? I'm sorry, I know you need to go, but I am certain people will want to know. Yes, Kim. So here's the thing, Kim. If you gave her the rules and she chose not to obey them, that is... Oh, and it's the acupuncture is helping. You did say that. Sorry, yep. Okay, excellent, Alice. I'm pleased to hear that. Big hugs to you, honey. And say hi to Tor for me. Tor is her son. Okay, so Kim, if she chose to break the rules, that's her choice. And, you know, she needs to put on the big girl pants now and know that, you know, we have actions and then we have accountability and consequences. And so if she chose to do the action that brought about that consequence, why are you to blame? And if you think you are to blame, and by the way, the fact that she's saying that you're a Looney Tunes because of it, no, I was being an adult protecting a child who was acting in a childish way and who doesn't seem to understand boundaries. Yeah, doesn't make me an idiot. That makes me a responsible adult. I would literally say that. I'm sorry that you think that makes me an idiot. When you grow up, you will understand that I was actually trying to protect you. And I know it's not your idea of what protection looks like, but when you're my age, you'll understand that a lot better. And in the meantime, even though you think I'm a Looney Tunes, I'd like to tell you, I still love you, the person. I just didn't like your behavior. That's what you got grounded for, the behavior, not you. The behavior you chose. All right? And it doesn't matter if they don't accept it. You've still got the message out there. And in fact, I would even, if you can, write and tell them that in an email or something, which is, you know, you cannot change their thinking of you, but just to understand that what you did was actually out of love, not out of hate. But, you know, I can remember being that age and feeling the same way about adults, you know. I'm out of here, seriously. All right, everybody, so big hugs all around. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. And most of all, thank you for looking after one another. But most of all, remember to look after yourselves. This is DearMamaSal saying bye for now. Bye-bye.